topic for this lesson is landscape drawing. Landscape drawing is a type of drawing that deals with the composition of trees, houses, human and animal figures to form a pictorial composition. It also entails the drawing of different scenes. Could be a football scene, could be a market scene, could even be a fighting scene. The most important tool used in landscape drawing is called perspective. So now, what is perspective? It is a technique used to represent a three-dimensional image on a two-dimensional surface. That is the use of lines and color to create an illusion of space on a two-dimensional surface. By two-dimensional surface, I mean on a flat surface. That is the making of a two-dimensional object to appear like a three-dimensional object. And again, what are three-dimensional objects? Three-dimensional objects are objects that we can see in the round. That means we can see all sides, or we can see different sides of that particular object. In perspective, objects that are close to the artist appear bigger than objects that are far from the artist, and objects that are close to the artist are presented with thick lines. So now let's look at some terms that are associated with perspective. The first one I have here is foreshortening. Foreshortening in perspective drawing are lines or surfaces parallel to the observer face. And foreshortening is also used in perspective drawing to create the illusion of an object receding strongly into the distance or background. And this illusion is created by the object appearing shorter than it is in reality, making it seem compressed. Convergence in perspective drawing are parallel lines that appear to approach each other as they recede. It is also referred to as the horizontal lines. There are three types of lines in perspective drawing, and they include the vertical lines, horizontal lines, and vanishing lines. The meeting point of vanishing line is referred to as vanishing point, and the center horizontal line is referred to as the eye level. There are two types of perspectives, and they include the linear perspective and the aerial perspectives. The presence of moisture, dust, smoke in the air scatters light, causing objects to appear lighter, duller, and have less details. In art, this is known as aerial perspective or atmospheric perspectives. When looking at distant objects, you would realize that colors of objects begin to fade the further away they are, and they appear washed out in color. That is, objects that are far away from you appear blur. So now observe these pictures. Did you notice that the objects in the foreground appear bright in color, and as these objects begin to recede or get further away from the viewer, they begin to lose their color? That is, they become blur. Another thing to note about atmospheric perspective is that the further away an object is from us, it begins to lose some of its details. These objects tend to look very blurry as they no longer have sharp lines and edges. The simple way to achieve a sense of depth and distance using aerial perspective is by shading or painting distant objects much lighter than objects in the foreground. That is, you shade or paint objects that are far away from you with lighter colors or light shades. So now I'm going to discuss on linear perspective. What is linear perspective? Linear perspective is a type of perspective that relates with sizes of drawings of objects in a particular composition. That is, objects that are close to the artist will be drawn bigger and more prominent with broad lines, while distant objects will be drawn smaller and less prominent with tiny lines. So how does linear perspective work? This is because objects look big when we are close to them and they look small as they get further away. If we are to line things up and connect ends and edges, it will form convergence lines. Converge means come together. A perfect example would be railway tracks. We know that the metal rails are parallel, and that is, they never meet. But if you look at them going off in the distance, it will look like they meet at a point up ahead. So here in this example, the railroad tracks is the converging lines, and the place where they meet is referred to as the vanishing points, because it looked like everything disappeared or vanished at that point. The vanishing point always falls on the line where the land meets the sky, which is called the horizon line. The picture plane is a window that contains the image the viewer is seeing. It floats in the front of the viewer. The picture plane can be centered at the middle of the vision point or offset. It can also be big or small.